Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks once again for joining us to today's webinar on effective promotion of your Christmas Challenge campaign. This is the third in a series. If you weren't able to join one of the previous webinars, they are actually available on the Big Give website. There are recordings of the previous webinars that you can access, and we have got a couple of further ones coming up in the next couple of weeks. So do check out the links provided to see what else. There's a webinar on particularly engaging with the press and another one on social media, so really complementary to this particular topic. Today we're focusing on the effective promotion of your Christmas Challenge campaign. So really thinking about the different promotional channels and ways of getting your message out there. In the previous webinars we looked at planning your Christmas Challenge campaign, so that real overview of the essentials, defining your objectives, thinking about how you can develop your campaign plans from inception through to launch and close. The second webinar we looked at your audiences and networks and also helping you to hone your fundraising messages. And as I say, today is about how you actually reach those target audiences with your messages. So thinking about the different communication channels that exist and a range of tips and tools to maximize these. My name's Janine. For those who haven't been on one of the webinars before, I'm the Head of Development and Learning for the FSI, and the FSI has worked with the Big Give this year in developing your marketing guidebook and delivering some of the webinars that are part of the program. Just a quick word in terms of format today. It's quite straightforward. We're planned for around 30 minutes of presentation and time for Q&A at the end. As I say, if you've got questions as we go through, I will take pauses at key points. So if you have any questions, you can use the questions function within the webinar. On the right-hand side of the screen, there should be a speech bubble with a question mark in it, and you type in your question. Just a couple of other housekeeping bits and pieces. We had some feedback from previous webinars that that sometimes the voice could be a bit patchy. If you are dialing in using VoIP, one of the issues can be if you've got the multiple tabs open. So just have the main webinar tab open rather than multiple tabs, and make sure that it's sort of the live tab that you're in as well. As I say, all of the participants in this webinar are on mute, so you won't be able to verbally speak, but do use that function. And we will send a transcript of the Q&A and a copy of the slides out to you following the webinar. And the link's available there and will be in the presentation itself for future webinars coming up, as well as accessing recordings from previous ones. So, first of all, welcome to the challenge and well done on all your hard work so far. Just a reminder about some of the key elements of this campaign. The key dates to remember are matching starts at midday on the 28th of November, which is Giving Tuesday, and it closes at midday on Tuesday the 5th of December. Your Big Give dashboard is the key place for you to go to. You can log in to access resources to help you market the campaign, and there's lots of resources available there. Make sure that you give yourself plenty of time to get marketing and to get the message out there. So start your planning if you haven't started it already. Invest that time now to get those plans done and developed so that actually you can relax and enjoy the week and see those match fundings come in. And the diagram just gives a quick reminder of how the matching works during the campaign week. So if you have had champion funding, congratulations to those who received it. What happens is that if you've had champion funds, then your matching pot is formed of pledge funds and champion funds. If it's just the pledge funds that you've got, then obviously your pot is formed of pledge funds. So when the campaign launches, donations will be doubled first of all by the pledges. And then when all of the pledges have been exhausted, if you've got champion funds, that's when the champion funds will be accessed. So just a reminder of that. I have a couple of questions that came in relation to that, as to whether charities should be thanking their champions yet. And I've just heard from the Big Give team that they've actually done that or are doing that on your behalf. And some of you, I know that the champions are anonymous, so you might not know who your champion is in any case, but that's done on your behalf by the Big Give team. So when you're selecting your promotional channels, it's worthwhile saying there are lots and lots of different ways of getting your messages out to your audiences. So you need to be able to and prepared to communicate across lots of different channels. And it's really important to think about, I think, particularly if your resources are quite tight and your capacity is quite limited, to really do this quite strategically and consider where and how your target audience will access information about the campaign. So I'd really recommend thinking about how you're already communicating with your supporters and what you're already using to communicate with people, even if they're not necessarily donors just yet. But I'm sure you'll have a website, you might be doing some direct mail activity, you might have a newsletter that goes out, you might have regular emails that go out. Even things like your email signatures. You know, we all use email on a day-to-day basis. Can you circulate something to be included in your email signature? Thinking about how you engage with maybe some of your significant donors, whether that's through telephone or meetings, whether that's at events, your social media, all of those things. If you're using them already, you should be integrating your Christmas challenge planning into that. And I think it's really important, just as a reminder as well, that you want to be driving your audience to your Christmas challenge project page. So try and reduce the number of steps someone has to take to get there. What you don't want to be doing is putting out a tweet, for example, that then someone has to go to your website, where they get then have to click another link to go to your project page. You really want to be directly linking people to your Christmas Challenge project page. And that's really important to make sure that you've got some engaging content on there. And I would suggest photos and images and good stories to really bring your work to life. I will say as well, it's just worthwhile flagging up. I should have said this in the housekeeping, but I did mention it in the first message that I sent out to everybody via the chat function. There is a marketing guidebook that's been produced to support this webinar series and to support you with your planning. And this particular webinar is focused on part 4, which is all about the promotional channels, which starts at page 22 of the guidebook. So if you find it helpful to have something to scribble on, you might want to access that. It's available from your dashboard page if you log into the Big Give. Some of you will have had that already if you've participated in previous webinars. So just a few things to have in the back of your mind as you're thinking about your promotional channels for your Christmas Challenge campaign. So we're going to start by taking a look at each of those in turn. So your website, absolutely vital, really important place to start for any promotional activity. And it's important to make sure that you've got some, particularly in the lead up to the launch of the Christmas Challenge, making sure that you've got really prominent info about the campaign and that you're reflecting some of your key campaign messaging on your website. So I've made some suggestions of things that you might want to be thinking about within your website, whether that's something on your home page. You might want to update your Support Us section to have some relevant content there. If you've got a news section on your website or blogs, making sure that you're updating those. So there may be numerous places within your website that you want to think about updating in the lead up to the campaign. And I think it's worthwhile thinking about having quite dynamic content there, so not just updating it prior to the launch and then forgetting about it, but actually keeping it updated through the campaign as well. So you can see on the screen there's an example of a countdown timer there. So you could be doing something like that in the lead up to it. You could be having something that gives progress updates on how much you've raised. And keeping people updated that way. Remember, donations are only doubled from midday on the 28th of November, so it's quite important to make sure that although you're potentially driving people and updating your website, that you're really clear that those donations are only doubled from that time. So any donations received before that wouldn't be doubled. In your guidebook on page 23, we've identified some useful tools to consider. So that might be thinking about Google Analytics to help you understand how people are coming to your website, what they do while they're there, and where they go afterwards, thinking about what time they access, what links they click on, what pages they tend to visit. Nibbler is a really good tool for testing how good your website is, and by just plugging in the URL into Nibbler, you can get a free report back which tells you, I guess it tests how important your website is on a number of different aspects: accessibility, search engine optimization, social media, compliance, and lots more. And you get quite a comprehensive report that rates you out of 10 on a number of different factors and gives you some suggestions for improvement. And another useful tool is addthis.com, which gives you the code to create share this buttons, so you can share to Facebook and Twitter and embed those onto your website so that people can share information about the challenge through their audiences and networks and potentially help you to reach a wider audience. Some quick tips in terms of getting traffic to your site. Think about things like search engine optimization, so making sure your content's maximized for SEO and people can find it via search engines. So you want to think about things like your titles and your subheadings and your links and the keywords that you use on your website. And if you do have access to Google AdWords, so I know some charities have had access to Google grants, which give in-kind listings on Google AdWords. You might want to think about using those to promote your campaign as well. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. This first one here is just a screenshot of Toynbee Hall's page for last year's challenge. So we're one of the Christmas Challenge participants in 2016. And you can see there's some really, this is not on their homepage, it's on their Get Involved, and it's a key section under their Get Involved. It's the main sort of heading under Get Involved. And there's some really clear messaging: double your donation, help us raise 20,000 for young people this Christmas, really clear imagery and logos, and some nice content down the sides linked to tangible donations, images, and stories about how actually that donation will make a difference. So a nice example there of using the website to and keeping that content updated with those key campaign messages included. This particular example is from New Theatre Royal. They incorporated the Big Give logo into their own sort of logo and branding to develop a Christmas Challenge 2016 badge, which actually also appeared in a number of other places at the bottom of email signatures, that was used in social media. And again, this is their Support Us section that they've updated. So talking about what they're raising the money for, really clear information about the fact that donations open for a period of time, giving an example of how the donation will be leveraged to with gift aid and with match funding as well. So you can see in the two examples that we've got, there's not a huge amount of copy there. There's a couple of paragraphs. So just thinking about, as people are accessing the website, particularly if people are accessing through mobile devices or smartphones, you don't want to have them scroll through lots of content. So making sure that it's optimized for those platforms as well. And then this example is from Canine Partners, and they've got a big, really prominent countdown timer on their website. So time left until your donation can be doubled. Again, with some key information focusing on the fact that donations can be doubled. You can see that, again, they've incorporated the Big Give Christmas Challenge imagery into their own imagery. And they've got further information. Again, this is on their Get Involved page, but you can see on the link down the side, or the sub-menus down the side, people can click through for further information to find out what the Christmas Challenge is all about, how people can donate to the challenge, how donations will be used, and also there's an option to help them spread the word, which is where you might find that there were those embedded links. So, moving on to email. Email, we know from previous challenge participants, they're a really, really important part of successful campaigns. So thinking about how you can plan in those emails to go out to your different audiences. And those emails should really be targeted. We had talked about in previous webinars, particularly the one about audiences, about the importance of segmenting your audiences and not taking a one-size-fits-all approach with your emails, with your communications, and that's just as important for emails as well. So, for example, you might want to be using a slightly different email message to people that have donated to you previously through the Big Give campaign, linking it back to, the Christmas Challenge campaign. Linking it back to how much was raised, how much that donation was doubled, and ultimately what impact that had on your beneficiary group. And I would recommend scheduling in several emails as part of your campaign. Something that gives people some pre-warning, so a pre-launch save the dates email, maybe a couple of weeks beforehand, just to remind people. I would be thinking about where the campaign fits within potentially people being likely to make a donation, or potentially when payment cycles might be for people. So you might want to make sure that it's with people well before month end, so they can actually plan for it in that following month. So sending a pre-launch or a save the date email. You also want to schedule an email to go on launch. So I would recommend getting something out at 12 noon on the day that matching starts, just as a reminder, or just beforehand, perhaps the morning of, to remind them. And it can be helpful to think about maybe at a midway point through the campaign, sending a bit of a progress update. So you might send that depending on whether you've reached, maybe at the point that you've reached 75% of your target and you want to get that final push, or it might be a last 48 hours to go. So depending on how you want to measure that progress. And then finally, you should send a final update at the end of the campaign. Feedback how you did, make sure that you thank people who donated and supported the campaign, and importantly, again, share that back to impact on your cause or your beneficiary group. Once your page is live, remember to send people directly to it from your emails. Again, you want to take out the number of steps someone needs to get to actually be able to donate to you. Personalized emails are always valuable, particularly if you can address someone by name, include their name in the subject line, and think really carefully about your subject lines to make sure that you avoid the spam filter as much as possible. You want to make sure that, again, within your emails, that there are good stories with a clear call to action and a reminder that donations are doubled. So think about the previous sections of the guide to help you plan your email content, to develop your stories, and look at your donor database and your supporter database and the people that you're in contact with to get that message out there. Again, some useful tools that you can think about. MailChimp is an email marketing platform that's got a free account option. So it just enables you to see, to split your lists, to have different segmented audiences, but also it enables you to get analytics for your emails to see how many people have opened it, how many people have clicked on the link, and a number of other useful things, so you can actually measure how successful your email has been in reaching that audience. Touchstone is a subject line analyzer, so it can be quite helpful to get past that first step of people actually opening your email, as I say, avoiding the spam filter. Another useful tool, and again, these are all listed in your marketing guidebook, but Litmus Scope lets you view different versions of your email, so you can see it on desktop, mobile, or text-only versions. And YAM is another tool for sending bulk mail merged emails. If you can, I would use a tool like MailChimp or similar, some other email marketing platform. It just has some inbuilt features into it, like unsubscribes, so the ability for people to actually manage their data within that, rather than just sending it blind copied to everybody on your Outlook email contact list. So again, let's look at a couple of examples. This particular email came from Womankind, who again were a participant in last year's campaign. And you can see this, this one is clearly being sent to people who have supported the campaign before. It opens with, last November you helped us raise an amazing £25,000 during the Big Give Christmas Challenge campaign for our work in Ethiopia. So it's acknowledging the support and the amazing work that was done. It talks about how those funds were used, providing a safe house protection to, and giving training and emotional support. And what they then do is they say, you know, we're really pleased to let you know that we've been selected to participate again. You'll be able to double your donations again. You don't need to do anything for now, but just add a reminder to your diary. So I think that's a really useful way, that sort of save the date example, just reminding people they don't need to do anything right now, they don't need to donate right now. In fact, you'll be in touch with a reminder, but they might just want to pop the date in their diary as a reminder to themselves. We've got another example here. This email was, again, letting people know, this was a launch email, so it's now open, letting people know that between now and noon on Friday we can match your donation, really clear, simple input graphic, clear call to action to double your donation at the top and the bottom of the email, and includes an image and a testimonial from a beneficiary as well. So it's really simple, it's straightforward. People have already been primed through the messaging from a launch campaign, so they're expecting this email, and it's just a reminder that the launch is open. And then finally, this example from Toynbee Hall, again an example of a launch email. Again, linking it to the story, every £1 you donate will transform a young person's life. Some good imagery there. Sorry, this example isn't a launch email. I'm incorrect there. It's actually their e-newsletter that went out. So again, thinking about how do you incorporate that message into your existing email communications. So I expect that this would have been followed up with also some targeted emails to people to drive them to donate, but it was front and centre of their e-newsletter. Obviously had further content and updates about their work more generally, but they incorporated their Christmas challenge messaging within their scheduled e-newsletter as well. So it's not just about doing standalone pushes, but also incorporating the messaging into your existing email communications. So before we move on, I just want to take a quick pause just to double check whether we've got any questions coming through on email and video. So I'm just typing a response, because obviously if you haven't got sound you won't be able to hear me replying. But we've had a couple of questions come through about sound. If you're having trouble with sound, try refreshing your browser or doing the phone call dial-in option. I can confirm we've got sound at our end and at the Big Give offices, and we've got engagement from other people that are clearly able to hear it as well. So so just try refreshing your browser. Let's see, we've got questions about personalising our Christmas Big Give campaign, Big Give project page. Yes, you can add images and content to that page, so you should. We've had a question about could the Big Give share the thank you communication that's been sent to our pledges so we know what's been sent to them. Just for clarification, there's been a question from Beck asking about the thank you communication that's been sent to pledges. Just for clarification, the Big Give thanks the champions on your behalf. So if you would like a particular message passed on to them, please send it through to the Big Give team on info@thebiggive.org.uk. You would need to thank your pledges, who you've got the relationship with separately, so that's for you to do. The Big Give won't thank them on your behalf. We've got some questions. Can we get a URL to embed on our website for the countdown? We'll look into that and see if we've got something available. I'm sure the code would be quite accessible to do that. We've got a question about Twitter, so I'm going to come back to that. We've had a question about how do we express how much we are aiming to raise, and whether you go for the total target, including match funding, but in terms of online donations, you're actually seeking half of that. The communications that that I've looked at in the successful campaigns that we've seen focus on the total figure, but highlighting the fact that people's donations are doubled. If you want to use the Big Give logos, you can find them on your Christmas Challenge dashboard along with a range of other. We've had a couple of points about the example pages are great, but not having the facility to add extra pages onto your website. So if that's the case, make sure that you're really making the most of your project page on the Christmas, on the Big Give website, and using that to full effect. And how you may want to think about whether you can pull in any volunteer support to help you update your website. Even if there's a news section or something, is there a part of your website that's dynamic and can be updated by you? And if so, can you easily do that? Had a question about what was the subject line for the Womankind email. Let me just flip back and see if we can see that. I don't think we can see the subject line within that email, I'm afraid. And I've had a couple of people come back saying that they can now hear, so that's a good thing, and that you have refreshed or dialed off and came back. There's also a particular question that's come through about adding content to the page, to the project page, and I'm going to ask that the Big Give team respond to that on email directly to Caroline, who's asked the question. And I've had a question from Sheila about, is it okay to update the content on our donate page to strengthen messages? Yes, absolutely. And another question from Evie, can we have access to our donation page before the 28th, or is it only released on the day? And yes, you've got access to it right now, but remember that the matches only start. So if you get donations to your page before midday on the 28th, you won't be able to have those matched. Okay, I'm closing the questions for now, but if you are still typing, rest assured we will come back to them. I want to move on now to think about video. So you can plan your video into existing website and social media activity, and it doesn't have to be really high-tech and whizzy. You can see on the bottom of your screen, I think this is one of the favourite examples I saw when doing the research. This was one of the charities that participated last year, and they just had some of the young people involved in one of their choirs singing an adapted song from Annie, the musical, based on Tomorrow, but basically launching a song to launch the Christmas challenge tomorrow and changing the lyrics to reflect that that donations were doubled. So you can see the links included there if you wanted to have a look at that and get some ideas and inspiration. But you could use video to show the impact that Christmas Challenge donors have made in the past or could potentially make, so featuring maybe project staff or a volunteer talking about the work. If you can feature your direct beneficiaries, that's amazing, but I know that for some of you that's just not possible because of safeguarding or anonymity, or just in terms of access to your beneficiaries or service users. So do think about whether you could feature someone who works on the project or a volunteer talking about the work and why it's so important. And you could feature a donor or one of your existing supporters talking about why they're supporting you and why they're almost in a way what they value about the work that you're doing, and using that as a story to inspire others. So some useful tools for you there. As I said, it doesn't have to be high-tech wizardry. The cameras that are available with smartphones these days are incredible, so that can be a useful starting point as your smartphone. The two most common and popular free video hosting sites are Vimeo and YouTube. And depending on how sophisticated your website is, you can also embed, there are tools to embed that content directly into your website as well. Um, and there's a link in your guidebook at the bottom of page 25, and I've mentioned it here, Magisto. That's a good free app that lets you use still photos to create animations. So, so can create the look and feel of a video, but actually just using still photos. So that might be a tool if you've got some videos, some good quality photographs in your library. You could use something like that to create a video. So social media, we have a whole nother webinar coming up on this one. So I'm really going to cover off some of the, I guess, the top tips and show you a couple of examples. And there is some quite comprehensive information from page 26 through to 28 in your marketing guidebook as well. So it's really worthwhile thinking about what platforms your target audiences already engage with and where you've got a presence. You know, if actually all of your volunteers currently engage with you on Facebook, maybe thinking about how you could use Facebook to help them get the word out to their networks. So maybe you're not making a direct ask of them to donate themselves because the time they give is so valuable. But you want them to get the message out on your behalf about the campaign and share it. So, so think about where your audiences are connecting in with you already to maximize your time. And as I say, that might be Facebook, might be Twitter, might be Instagram, could be LinkedIn, particularly if you wanted to make corporate links and networks. You can use the content that you've got as well as networks and hashtags to reach new audiences. So use the search functions to search on, you know, maybe it's about a hashtag related to your particular location. Maybe it's about looking within who's following you on Twitter or Facebook and who's got the widest support network themselves. You might approach them specifically to retweet or to share your messaging to reach their networks. And some tools that can help you, first of all, thinking about using the Giving Tuesday hashtag. Christmas Challenge does launch on Giving Tuesday, so that can help you get some more momentum around your campaign. Other useful tools, Canva and GIMP and PicMonkey, all allow you to create and edit images quite easily. So, so using photographs, but can help you to get very engaging, shareable images. And in fact, we used Canva to develop the marketing guidebook itself, so it's quite a useful design tool and free of charge. Facebook advertising might be something that some of you are considering. It can be cost effective and it can be a way to reach new audiences who might not actually be aware of your charity or your campaign. There are some good websites to go to shorten your links, so particularly if you're trying to fit a message into Twitter. So TinyURL or Bitly can help you to shorten those messages. And Hootsuite or TweetDeck are the two most common tools I know of to schedule your and monitor your Twitter activity. So let's look at a couple of examples before I look at the questions coming through. So these are examples. Last year, Sendercow won the Christmas Challenge Champion Award. And these are a couple of examples of their Facebook updates. So you can see, now the campaign launched, I believe, on the 29th of November last year. So you can see this is a save the date sent on the 15th of November. So 2 weeks beforehand, get ready to double your donation. They've used an image. It's known that, sort of well evidenced that on social media, images and video get more engagement. They've used the hashtag Christmas Challenge 16. And they've got some key messaging in there. Obviously, you can't see more. If you really wanted to, you could look up this particular post. But support our Cows for Christmas appeal, and some special donors will double your donation. So this was a save the date that went out 2 weeks beforehand. The second one there is then a one that went out the day after the launch. Again, use of images for engagement, direct links to their, they use Bitly to create a personal link, personalised link around their Cows for Christmas campaign, but it took people directly to their Christmas Challenge project page. And much more urgency. Support us now, and we'll be able to help even more families because your donation will be doubled. This is a good example of a charity using their network. So they've tweeted a picture of their patron. They've tagged their patron, so hopefully their patron will retweet it. And they've used hashtags to increase the engagement as well. And they've also copied in a couple of key networks within their local area, so Chester Tweets and Chester Hour as well. So again, using networks and links to get your message out there further. And this is an example again of using networks. So Sarah Brown, so a particular person within the networks of this charity shared a tweet with a key statistic. 90% of South Sudanese women can't read, give to their education here. So really simple, straightforward messaging to drive people to the project page. And you can see within her networks here, that was picked up and retweeted by 5 people. One of those people was Kim Cattrall. So you just don't know who is following your particular influencers within your networks and where it might get picked up from there as well. But if you do have, it's well worth thinking about within your networks, if you do have patrons or supporters or high-profile people that have supported you before, think about how you can tap into their social networks and their social media with your Christmas Challenge campaign. So I'm just going to check for any questions at this point on social. Bear with me one moment while I scroll down. Oh, someone's flagged up to me that Magister is not free, that there's a free trial for a month, but you have to put in card details and cancel before the month is up in order to use it. Thank you very much for flagging that up, Joanna. I think since I last used it, I hadn't realised that that was the case, but thank you. Is there a recommendation for the length of video? What's too long, for example? Just remembering that our attention spans are getting ever shorter and shorter. So if you can keep it to less than a couple of minutes, I think that's best. I think particularly if you're using it to share through social media, people might be accessing it through their smartphone. They might be accessing it on the go. So you want to keep it really accessible. We've had a question about whether there'll be a thunderclap to announce the campaign has started. There isn't one planned from the Big Give, but we have seen thunderclaps used quite successfully to launch sort of initiatives and events. There might be something for future consideration. Links for the social media webinar back on the first page of the slide. So when we circulate them, or not the first, it was in the first few pages, there was a link to access them. And I've had a question about the dial-in number. It should be It should give you the option when you dial in to dial in either through your computer audio or a phone call, and then it should give you a number and an access code to access the webinar. So just to check, any other questions before we move on? Okay. So moving swiftly on then to some of the other approaches to consider. Personal approaches. You might want to make personal approaches to those that you want to make significant gifts to your campaign, and that might be via telephone, it might be through meetings, but think about who's best placed in your organisation to make that approach to them. So who's the sort of relationship holder in your organisation, or the key worker for that individual? And I think it's really worthwhile for those handful of really key donors to think about what their motivations would be and personalise your ask to them. And remembering that the motivations of donations being doubled is quite important to communicate as well. Direct mail, it can be something to consider if you're trying to reach your audience and they tend to engage with you offline rather than online. If that's the case, I would recommend putting at least one mailing in, maybe an early Christmas card or a postcard as a reminder, and think about putting in a memorable link to your project page. So in a similar way to Send a Cow, they had their bit.ly and then they personalised it for their cows for Christmas. So it's a really easy to enter and remember website link to get people directly to the Christmas Challenge page. Press, again, you know, we'll have another webinar on press, but do think about if press is part of your promotional planning, think really hard about what's going to be of interest to the readership of the publication that you're approaching, because they're going to want stories that are of interest and will engage their readers. So personal stories can be really powerful. Case studies can help you to get that coverage and help someone to pick that up. Do your research, so check the publication and copy deadlines really well in advance. Make sure you know who you need to send the press release to, when they need to get it by, and check when within the challenge publication will actually be released, because what you don't want to do is have a great story and coverage, but it actually happens and doesn't come out until after the match funding campaign has ended. If you'd like a press release template, you can contact the Big Give and they will send you a template. And my news desk is a useful tool for distributing your press release and offering training and support, but bear in mind it comes with a fee. Events are also something that you could be considering. So thinking about what existing events you've already got planned between now and the campaign, the campaign launch date, making sure, you know, could you share some postcards, some information, or save the date at those. You might host a particular event for those donors that might not otherwise engage online, and potentially have some donation stations set up for them to donate. Remembering all of the donations need to come in online via your Christmas Challenge project page. And your supporters and volunteer fundraisers might host an event. So one of the Christmas Challenge champions last year actually had, through their volunteer fundraisers, they encouraged them to host events on their behalf, and then again encouraging people to donate after the event through the Christmas Challenge project page. So let's look at a quick case study, sort of linking everything together. And I'm conscious we are running into, we're a little bit over time. So I'll just take you through. I hope this case study will help to link all of these different areas. But Royal Holloway participated in the Christmas Challenge last year and were one of the Christmas Challenge champions in 2016. Now, they began their planning really early on, and they thought about really what their key objectives were. They wanted to raise their profile internally with staff and students, and they wanted to raise money from new supporters, both internally and externally. So going back to that planning your campaign objectives. So they saw, they sort of broke their planning down into three different phases. So in the pre-launch, so in the lead up to the event, they looked at all of their existing comms that they had coming up. They identified there was an e-newsletter that was going to all of their external contacts. They knew that there was an alumni magazine scheduled to go out in early November, and every month the principal sent a message to all internal staff and students. So some information about and content about the Christmas Challenge was included in all of those existing comms. They filmed 2 videos in the lead up to the campaign, and one was specifically sent a week out. It had a student describing what the challenge was and how people could get involved, and that went out to both staff and student newsletters and through social media. It was promoted heavily in the week before the challenge to start building engagement and building interest. In the week itself, they made sure that it was really central on their homepage, that there were lots of stories. They had drop-in stations for donations right across the campus, and in a retail bank outlet as well. They hosted a guest lecture event, had posters and cards and stickers across campus. And scheduled a couple of key emails to go out as well. So one on the launch and another one at 24 hours to go. And tied into that throughout the campaign was a flurry of social media activity, making sure that that was supporting their key messaging. They also had a crossed over into the pre and during, but a postal and telephone campaign. So called and emailed to prompt those who had pledged to go online previously, just a reminder to actually give their pledges. And then post the campaign, they used that second video that they filmed in the week afterwards to explain their work and use that as a thank you for donors and supporters. And finally sending a thank you email, again to across all of their networks, but really sharing the successes of the campaign, and had some fantastic results. They exceeded their targets. They had 489 people participate in the campaign, 42 new donors, and 40% of the past donors had actually increased the value of their gift. So really thinking about, this is an example where there was a lot of existing activity to lock into already, but really thinking about what you do already as a charity to reach your networks and how you can incorporate the Christmas Challenge into this. So I hope that sort of helped you to link together some of the elements that we've been talking about and get you thinking about your campaign promotion in those 3 key stages: the pre, the during, and the post. If you need to leave us now, completely understand. Remember, we will share the messaging. I'll come back for final questions, but just to finish on some final tips for the Big Give. Focus on what's tried and tested. So think about what channels are currently most effective for you in fundraising and how your donors like to be communicated with. So where are people already engaging with you and what works? You might want to pilot some new ideas. So particularly if this isn't your first Christmas challenge, get creative and use the challenge as an opportunity to test out new ideas if you're able to. Make sure you do the maths. So think about, back to your objectives, think about how many people you want to make a donation. How many people do you need to convert from an email to a donation in that case? And are you actually contacting enough people for that to happen? And if not, what more do you need to be doing to reach wider audiences? Remember to use the hashtag Giving Tuesday. Matching starts at midday on the 28th of November, and it's only available until midday on the 5th of December. If you've got champion funds, remember that pledge funds are used to double donations first before the champion funds are accessed. So make sure that you're planning to reach a wide enough network of people and that you're raising enough donations to access those champion funds. If you've got any questions, you can contact info@thebiggive.org.uk, and we have our webinar on press on the 27th of October, and there is a fifth webinar on social media specifically as well. Again, the links will be provided to book onto those. But before we do go, I'm just going to do another final check. Remember, you can pose questions using the question mark and speech bubble function. If there are any final questions coming through, please let us know. So I've seen a question on the Royal Holloway second video. Their second video, if I just refresh my memory there, the second video was the Director of Development speaking about the work of the department and how important campaigns like the Christmas Challenge and fundraising was to the work that they do. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions coming through, so I'm going to stop recording at this stage. Thank you all for your time and participation. Do remember the marketing guidebook has lots of useful tools and some activities that you can work through to think about planning for your campaign. You can access recordings of the webinar from the Big Gives website at the same link, the marketing webinars link that you signed up for this one to, and do just drop an email to info@thebiggive if you've got any further questions. Just had one last question pop in. Do you think it would work to reversion existing video? Yeah, I'm a big advocate of not reinventing the wheel. So if you've got something already there that you could quite easily reversion, add maybe a kind of an opening image or something like that, link to the Big Give campaign, or edit something existing, by all means. Just ensure it's consistent with your campaign messaging, and that comes back to your core proposition.